Let me ask you something. If 30% of your clients disappeared next month, would your business be fine or would you panic? Because for most coaches and clinic owners I talk to, that's not even a hypothetical. That is already happening to them. They have clients that are coming and going month over month. They have revenue that's going up and down wildly depending on what type of year it is or what time of year it is. And their day-to-day operation is feeling incredibly busy, but they're not actually building anything that is stable. And then, of course, going through that process, they tend to convince themselves, well, it's just my industry, or the people, when it comes to their health, are pretty inconsistent. But the reality is there could be a different way of running your business. It comes down to the structure. So today, what I'd like to do in this episode is break down the 5 things you need in your business if you actually want stability, growth, and something that doesn't rely on you grinding 24/7 just to keep it afloat. And with that, we are going to officially kick off the episode of C2C. And we're going to go into our first section you need inside of your business, which is recurring revenue. There are so many practices and so many training facilities out there that think it's still okay to have clients that are not on contracts or they're still operating on single session or what I call serve session basis. And this is something that the industry has really normalized, where you'll have a lot of people who say, well, I don't want to lock my clients down at commitments, or I want to be different and I want to show people that it's okay to come and leave because I want them to feel comfortable when it comes to taking actions or making decisions on their health. However, that is terrible for them and that is terrible for your business. When it comes to the client, having them on single session services or not having them on contracts or long-term commitments means that they can be very shifty or very inconsistent when it comes to the commitment of the journey. A client is going to see less results with you when they have no commitment because they're not going to take it as seriously. They're going to show up whenever, and what ends up happening inside of your business is your business transforms more into having clients in urgent care than it does having them in consistent care. Urgent care is whenever a client has a weight issue that comes up or has back pain that reoccurs. That's when they book a bunch of sessions with you because they're like, ooh, I need to tackle this right now. And you're like, oh man, I really wish that you would just build this as a lifestyle. But the thing is you are training them. You are training them in your offers and in the way that you are operating your business, that it is more urgent than it is more consistent. Now, when it comes into your business, recurring revenue is really important because this is how we continue to stack memberships. See, when you don't have contracts or when you don't have agreements with people, you're going to have a constant battle against churn. And churn inside of a health business is already high. It's one of the highest in all of the industries across the board, even service-based industries. And usually for churn, it floats anywhere from 5 to 6%. So that means month over month, you're going to have 5 to 6% of your people that are going to be leaving. And sometimes that's through no fault of your own. You're going to have clients that leave because they finished up the journey. You're going to have clients that leave simply because they're working on another part of their health journey. And then, of course, you're going to have clients who leave maybe because they didn't see the types of results that they were looking for through your services. Regardless, the point of churn is going to be very high, 5 to 6%. I've seen businesses upwards of 15%, which is pretty scary, where you are going to be losing people month over month. If you have a contract or you have a commitment or you've committed someone to a long-term process, that protects you against churn. You know that you have that person for a 4-month perspective, or you have them for 20 sessions that goes over a 3-month period. And that makes it a lot easier for you to then do things in terms of marketing or promote other services, knowing that you have that revenue locked in. The thing too, when it comes to month or session-based services, is you have very unpredictable income. At any time, for any reason, you can have 15 clients that say, hey, I'm not going to come in for the month of March. And then all of a sudden, you're going to see a $5,000 to $6,000 hit to your revenue. You still have to pay your people the same. You still have to run your facilities or your locations the same. Your expenses don't change. So if your revenue or your income changes, that's a problem. That makes it hard for you to pay your bills. And this is where a lot of clinic owners or a lot of facility owners start to really see and bank on these high cash months where it's like, ooh, I got to make all this money up front in January because it's got to last me March. Or man, I have to get a bucket ton of money me in June because July and August, when people are on vacation, I know that my revenue is going to hit. Session-based and month-to-month creates unpredictable income because people don't have a locked in. And you're not going to be able to forecast that growth if you don't know who's staying. The reason why we are able to build a scalable business and build a team long term is when we know what's coming in and when we know the numbers that we have to hit for growth. Like all of our clients who work inside of C2C, we set basically what is the maximum amount of people that can be inside of your facility, how many people can we accommodate per hour, what does that look like in terms of how many people are going to leave the program, whether it's leave because they saw results or leave because they didn't, and then how many people do you have to get on the front end to stay ahead of that curve. And this is where you'll have successful clinics and successful training facilities that go anywhere from 12 to 15 person positive gain, where month over month, they're continuing to grow. Great example is with the training station that we're working with in Simcoe. They started with 858 members. They now have 1,200 members. They have 1,200 members because they are in a member surplus. They still have people that are exiting their memberships, but they're signing up more people than they are losing the people on the back end. But that's also because they have contracts. They have agreements. I personally believe recurring revenue is not just about stabilizing your business, but it really is about making sure that you can have someone consistently show up for themselves. When I look across all the numbers of both the clinics, the healthcare centers, the training centers that we've worked with, all of the people who are on month to month or who are on sessions, they have the highest no-show rates. They have the highest reschedule rates. They have the highest inconsistent booking rates, in which case you're chasing the person to finish the sessions or to fill in their blocks. And it's because there's not really a sense of urgency. The sessions don't expire, or what they paid for the sessions within the session blocks really isn't something that they have to take in this moment. So the moment you shift these people into a structured transformation where it is a longer term agreement, where it is a set time frame, you are now conditioning people that there has to be a level of consistency when it comes to their health. It is a win-win for your business, and it's a win for your client, because now your client knows twice a week I'm showing up here, or 3 times a week I'm going to be doing this, or I meet with my professional to work with me once a month. Regardless of what that consistency looks like, they know that it's going to be a dedicated process. By having a consistent agreement as well too, or by having them committed for a longer term, you're also going to deliver to them better results because they're going to show up differently in between sessions. I mean, the person who shows up once every 3 months versus the person who's showing up on a consistent time frame, they're going to be actively doing the other work, which is not just the urgent care for you, like, how do you fix my neck? Or, hey, how can I lose these 10 pounds? They're going to be doing this stuff in between. The way I see recurring revenue is like, if your clients aren't committed, neither are your results or your revenue. And that's why we need it inside of your business. The second area I want to focus on is pricing for scale, not pricing to compete. So many people in the health and wellness industry are always trying to create a number that they think their clients can afford. And when I break down that price point and I'm like, what made you come up with this number? They're like, I don't know, I just picked it. Even worse, some of them are looking at what their competitors are doing across the street, and they're saying to themselves, hey, I base my pricing based on my competitor because I wanted to stay competitive with them. The hard part about pricing to compete versus pricing to scale is you can no longer grow a team, or you can't add on any other things because it's not built into the price point. So many people do not realize that they are unknowingly losing money because they are charging too cheap for their services. And this is where you have to take a look into what goes into a price point. When we're pricing, we're not just doing it based on what our competitor's doing. And when I'm looking at competitors, there's a lot of things I don't know about them. I don't know what their facility overhead is. I don't know how many team members they have. I don't know what they're paying their team members. I don't know what their utility cost is. And I don't know what they're doing in terms of client delivery. So when I look towards matching their price or trying to do some type of a close price comparison, it's very difficult. And this is where you have to take a look into your price point and you have to say to yourself, is the price point inside of my location or inside of my clinic, is it priced to scale? Or is it priced to simply cover me as the individual practitioner or only a core crew of the team? And this is where actually I got caught up in my business for a really long time. I priced it so it covered my time. And then all of a sudden, after I got really full and I couldn't take on any more people, once we capped that basically it was like 65, 70 people a week, I was like, holy crap, I can't afford to hire the admin. I can't afford to bring on another practitioner. I can't afford to hire a coach or to pay someone to do my marketing. And this is where then all of a sudden you start to look at, holy crap, what am I actually charging my clients? And this is where when you're looking at the price point, your price point has to cover everything. It doesn't just cover the 1 hour or the 30 minutes you're with someone. It has to cover the program design. Like, how much time does it take to create what you need for that client? It also has to cover the client notes, because it's not just during the session itself. There's going to be things you're going to have to do for these people in between. Does your service cover that? On top of that, it has to cover admin time. Can you pay other people from that single hour? And then you have to factor into, like, what is your facility overhead? One of the things we do inside of the C2C program is we calculate, if you have a physical facility, we calculate how much, like your facility cap, how many people can your facility and your location hold? And then we break it down on a service-based basis, and we break it down into what is your hourly cap. Based on that hourly cap, we then look at all of your expenses and we do a full breakdown, and we say every single hour, each person is responsible for this much of your expenses to run this place, to pay your team, to cover your utility overhead. And that has to be filtered in, and that has to be filtered in into the hour per hour price point. So if you have someone where, let's say, you're charging them $60 an hour, but by the time you pay your coach, pay the utilities and everything, you might actually find out that you're losing $11 per session per client. And you're like, holy crap, I didn't realize that I was actually undercharging that much. And I say $11 as an example because I recently did a calculation for a client, and on one of their service, they were losing money per session. And the moment you hear that, you're like, oh, wow, this is a really sobering thought. If I want to hire the team or if I want to continue to expand, I have to charge what's going to allow me to have room to growth. It has to cover your marketing budget. It has to cover cost of acquisition. It has to cover your facility. So there are some times we can see our cash flow, we can see the income that's coming in, and you're like, oh, wow, I'm making so much upfront money. You're profitable on paper. But when you look at all the margins or at the end of the year or quarterly, if you're doing your bookkeeping quarterly, you're like, holy shit, I'm actually not really profitable. I'm always break even, or I'm always dipping into savings, or I have really high cash months, and then all of a sudden I'm followed by these really, really low months. Now, most people simply don't know the numbers of what they need to be adding in to the price point. But another reason why, as to why they're not increasing the price point now, is because you have a fear, and it's a fear of raising prices. You're like, well, I've gotten the clients that I have because my prices are fairly reasonable, and I'm scared that if I increase those prices, then all of a sudden I'm going to lose people. Yes, you are going to lose people, for sure. But let's look at best case scenario and worst case scenario. And I've gone through this with many clients. Worst case scenario, you convert a bunch of people to a higher price point and you're going to have some leave. But the people who leave create an open spot, and the ones who stay with the price increase are going to make up for the people who left. So if anything, you're going to be making the same amount of money, but now you're going to have more availability to take on more clients and you're going to have less work. That's a pretty good worst case scenario. Let's go best case scenario. Best case scenario is you increase your prices. Everybody stays. You make more money. You can then grow your team. You can pay for things that you need. And your delivery didn't change because you still have the same amount of people. So this fear of raising prices to lose people, yes, you're going to lose people, but the reality is you're losing people already. Look, some will leave. Good. Let them leave. Let them go to the cheapest person around the block and let them deal with the challenging people. I can tell you the people who don't renew because of price increases, or people who leave when they end up being cheaper, those end up being the clients who complain the most and the ones who have the most hassle anyways. We all know those people who pay like $30 for a service and they want like everything down to the nines, which is freaking crazy. Or is the saying down to the nines or done to the nines? I think it's done to the nines. Is that the saying? I believe it is. They want everything done to the nines, but then it's like you have this person who's paying $800 or $900 a month, and these people don't say a peep. They're happy with the service. They're responsive. They show up all the time. So what I can tell you is increasing prices, the right ones are going to stay because they're going to be the better clients. They're going to be the ones who see your value. They're going to be the ones who want to support your business. So by raising your prices, you're going to free up a lot of time to sell higher value spots as well, which is really good. When it comes down to your pricing and making sure that it's priced to scale, what I can tell you about pricing is this: if your pricing can't support a team, it can't support growth. There's no way that you can improve your business by being the cheapest or by keeping your prices reasonable, because it's not reasonable if you're still stuck in your business and you're still trading your one-on-one time. And now we're going to go on to number 3, which is knowing your numbers. When we are operating in our businesses, we have to stop guessing and we have to start showing up like we are running a business. There are so many locations and facilities that I go to where when I ask them if they track their numbers, they say yes. And then when I start looking at the numbers, they're like, I don't have this. I need to get this number. I'm going to take time to find it. I have to get back to you on this. And all of that comes down to you're not tracking your numbers properly. You cannot be guessing when it comes to running your business. And there are some key areas that I want to elaborate on. There's an infinite amount of numbers that you can track, but there are some key areas that you really have to operate. First is marketing. You need to know your ad spend, your cost for acquisition, so what it actually costs you to get a client. You need to know your leads, how many leads you're getting, how many views you're getting, and then show rates, close rates, and booking rates. That's pretty simple, but in a nutshell, that's going to cover the majority of your marketing, so you understand if the marketing that you're doing is actually going to be beneficial for you. Outside of that, there's a lot of things that you actually have to track outside that most people don't, like your facility expenses. This is where you have to look at what are you spending on software? What are your monthly expenses that are fluctuating? What are your static expenses like your rent, your utilities, your staff? We calculate that because your static expenses won't change, but your monthly expenses might vary wildly depending on what marketing initiative you're pushing or what your software looks like. Outside of the facility math, we've got to look at client capacity. We need to know what your hard cap is inside of your location. And there's 2 hard caps. If you have a physical location, there's how many people can I fit in before I have to grow my facility or before I have to change my services. Then we have a team cap. And the team cap is how many people can my team take on before my systems start to get clunky or before I need to hire on another person. We need to know both. Client capacity is so we can calculate how much we have to charge to cover our expenses. And so we know what our recurring revenue numbers need to be month over month. Our team cap understands how many people can I take on before my system starts to break and I need to start searching for somebody else. This allows you to then say, well, if I know I need another 30 clients before I hire the person, I can start searching for the person. So when I get those 30 clients, boom, I already have the team member ready. But if we don't have these numbers, we're just guessing on what we're charging people, and then we're guessing on what needs to bring in. On top of that, we need to know how much revenue we're generating per hour, how much revenue we're bringing in per client, what the client's average spend is, the retention of a client, how long a client stays, and then we need to know our break-even point. What is our break-even per person, per offer, and per service? Now, if all of you are listening to this and you're like, holy crap, these are a lot of things to track. Like I feel like I'm not tracking any of this stuff. You start by just slowly working backwards. What are my facility expenses? How many people do I need to cover the facility expenses? If I divide it evenly through the people, how do I get a 30 to 35% profit margin? What does my price have to be to make that profit margin happen? And then you start extrapolating. If I want 2 more team members, or if I want to get from this many people to that many people, well, is my team going to break? If so, cool. When do I bring on the team? Does that change my expenses? Do I have to increase my price? And then you have stages to do this. And it's so interesting because when I'm working with clients in the C2C program and I'm walking them through this process, they're like, I never changed my prices or made any decisions from this place before. And that's why when we're setting client goals, or when we're setting revenue goals, or when we're setting marketing initiatives, we're not just doing it randomly. It's not just like, oh, I hope that I get another 15 clients this month. We're doing it strategically. We know how many people we lose on average. We know what our break-even point is for our marketing. We know the cost it takes us to get someone. So I know what I have to spend to bring a certain amount of people through the door so I can get them signed up. And once I get them signed up, then I know how long they stay and I know how much they spend. So I know what I can promote and I can push to them. Everything is done via strategy. And this is the difference between being a single coach or a single practitioner to being a clinic or a facility or building a team. It's not just the team and the people. You also have to have the strategy on how you're tracking the numbers. And what I can tell you when it comes to managing the numbers is most businesses don't hit a ceiling when it comes to clients or a ceiling when it comes to revenue. They hit a number that they never calculated, and then it confuses them, and that's where they get stuck. Now I want to move on to the fourth section. The fourth section is a clear front-end offer. We've talked about recurring revenue. We've talked about numbers. We've talked about price point. Now you need to have a clear front-end offer, as in, what are you known for? If you confuse people, you don't convert them. And there are so many businesses that I go into in which they're offering so many services and they're trying to promote them all at the same time. Their social media is not clear who they help. They have many, many offers. Their online ads aren't clear. They're trying to help everyone or serve everyone because the logic is, let me just get more leads to get people in. But what ends up happening is you start losing authority because people don't know what you're known for. And this is where when you have too many offers or too many services, you get diluted messaging. People start saying, well, I want to work with a specialist in this area. I don't want to work with a generalist. And this is where when you look at every single type of business, whether you're a clinician, whether you're a practitioner, whether you've got a coach or training facility, every single one of these has a core service. And you have to promote the core service first because that's where the majority of people go through. Like a naturopathic facility is going to have naturopathic care as its primary focus. All your marketing should be directed towards that. All the content should be pushing that because that is the entryway into that. Then if you've got additional services like a nutrition coach, acupuncturist, then you can start referring those or you can start selling to people who go through. But make sure that your core service, being the best naturopath, is what you're pushing and promoting. When it comes to a big box gym or like a training facility, the majority of the thing is memberships or it's personal training. If you have a very large facility, you're going to want to be pushing memberships because members are going to then do classes. They're going to then hire nutritionists. They're then going to do personal training because when they buy once, they're going to buy more. But the core offer is memberships. So if you start offering too many things, you end up diluting the message and then people don't really know what you're known for or what's going on inside of your facility. Even something like a chiropractic clinic. If you had a chiropractic clinic and all of a sudden you're promoting acupuncture, you're promoting osteopathy, but your name is a chiropractor clinic, people are going to say, well, do I need chiropractor? Do I need osteopathy? Do I need acupuncture? And you confuse them with your messaging. So ultimately they do nothing. They stay in the indecision land. So If you're trying to master every single service in your business, you're going to end up mastering nothing. You need one clear entry point. If you had to promote a single service to fill 95% of your business, what is that entry point going to be? And then once you have that entry point, you need one clear problem you solve. Is it back pain? Is it balancing hormones naturally with food? Is it weight loss? What is the one clear problem that you are helping with? Great example of this is the company that I used to run. We used to have an 8-week hormone reboot program. And what we did was we helped people balance their hormones naturally using food so they could reduce estrogen and stop bloating. That was it. That was all the offer was for. That was the main focus that people came in to the program for. We were known for that. We gave great results for that. People knew exactly what they were getting with that. And so everything led into that. And sure enough, guess what? People started working on weight loss. People started working on one-on-one coaching. They started going into community groups, different things, but it all branched out largely from the single offer that was there. And this is where we have to go right in to one message, one offer, one problem. And does that mean that you can't take on the other services? No, you can be a multidisciplinary clinic. You can be a training facility that has a nutritionist on staff. You can have multiple people. But when it comes to marketing and messaging, you confuse people. And this is where you're going to have generic marketing. You're going to end up with low quality leads. People who in the moment are going to be interested in the service. And then when you start sharing with them, they're like, nah, it's okay, I'll pass, or I can't afford it. You're going to have poor conversions, where you're going to have a lot of people who aren't really clear on what your offer is. So when you're talking to them about it, they're just not going to have enough trust. And you're also going to lose authority positioning. When you focus on being a generalist instead of being the expert or the standard in your city or locally, people want to work with the specialist. You're going to lose authority to the person who is going to be the specialist instead of you. Bottom line with this is if people don't know what you're known for, they won't choose you. And this is why we have to lead with one core offer and one core message. Now, the final piece that we're going to look at is retention. This is how you keep your clients, and this is where most businesses leak a crap ton of money. So many facilities are like, I just need more leads. Guys, you do not have a lead problem. You have a client loss problem. You could get 10 leads a month and close 4 of them. But if you are retaining more people than you lose, your membership and your client base is still going to grow month over month. When I'm going in to facilities and I'm looking at their existing marketing, they don't really have a problem generating leads. They're generating anywhere from 55 to 200 leads a month, which is pretty decent depending on the type of service that you have. So even at 55 leads, and let's say you're closing, something very low at 10% or upwards of 30%, which is what the average is, you're still getting 15 to 10 people that are going through that door. But you're losing so many people on the back end. People are finishing up. They're unclear with what the next step is. They're not seeing results through the process. You're not doing a good job in client delivery. Your client delivery is very inconsistent. And then that's when you're going to start losing people. So there's a couple of issues when it comes to retention. That first one, which I said last, strangely, is inconsistent results. The challenge with building a team and not having SOPs or a process when it comes to client delivery is everyone is going to deliver in a different way. So what's going to happen is you're going to get people like you, the actual owner, who gives crazy results. And then you're going to have the person you hired who's maybe they're very inconsistent. So with that, you're going to have some clients who win and they're going to be very fired up and they're going to stay. But then you're going to have others who don't. And if you don't have a system, there's not going to be a clear reason why, because everything you're doing is different every time. But that's the clear reason why. Everything you're doing is different every time. This is why we have to streamline our client delivery. That doesn't mean copy and paste their care. No, what that means is the way clients get onboarded is the same. The way that their sessions operate is the same. Their client care might look different in terms of the adjustments or custom programming or whatever you're giving them. But then the team check-ins, the client follow-ups, making sure that the way that a client goes through if they're having a hard time, like what the success metrics are, all of the benchmarks have to be the same. So that way, when a client goes through, they're getting a minimum quality of care, they're getting a good experience. That's going to be the biggest thing that keeps people in your world. But here's the thing, giving them a good experience isn't enough. This is where then you're going to have to go and give them clear action steps. That's issue number 2. There's no clear step as to what happens next. So a client finishes the journey. They see great results. You've helped them make it to the end of the first goal, and then boom, there's a dead end. You say to yourself, well, come back if you need us, or goodbye forever, I guess, because there's no clarity as to what are your next goals? What are you looking to achieve? Can we create a program to help after that? And this is where there's a difference of retention between people who stay for 4 months and people who stay for 2.5 years, like our clients inside of C2C. Our clients inside of the Coach to Coach program have average retention of 2.5 years because they have a process. They understand what happens after what happens next. They're not just focused on, I just have to deliver to the client right now the way they are. They're focused on, how do I keep this client long-term? How do I continue to deliver? And this is where you're going to need an ascension or a continuation plan. So like a great example of this is, let's say you deal with an initial injury. So someone comes in, they have a spinal issue. Perfect. Well, after you help them with the immediate pain, how about a strength program or a conditioning program afterwards to prevent them from having pain afterwards? Or let's say someone's coming to your facility and they've got issues with weight loss. Okay, well, after you help them lose the 30 pounds, maybe all of a sudden we have a phase 2 for a performance goal. Like, here's how we run a marathon. Maybe they come to your naturopathic clinic and they're like, oh, I've got a hormone issue. Okay, so the first thing is to stabilize your hormones. And then the next thing might be an optimization phase where we work on your nutrition and your stress. There is always another step in the journey, but we have to help them set goals and we have to paint the picture so they are wanting to stay long-term. Clients don't leave when they finish, because there's always going to be times where they're going to finish a session, finish a goal, finish whatever program they're in. They're going to leave when there's no next step. So if you don't guide that next step, your client's going to exit your world. So guys, those are the 5 areas that I wanted to share in this video, and they're all very important. Like when it comes to recurring revenue is all about stability. You have to have a stable flow so you can pay your people, you can pay yourself, and you can pay marketing initiatives and not have to worry about it. Then there's the pricing, right? Pricing is for profitability, so you have the room to scale, bring on more people, and try new things without having to dip into your own funds. Then, of course, there's the numbers. The numbers aren't just to track for the sake of tracking, it's for clarity. This is how we make all of our decisions when it comes to marketing, when it comes to promoting, and when it comes to creating new offers. Speaking of offers, then there's the 4th one, which is front-end offer. We need to have a specific go-to point. That's going to be our go-to point of growth. That's why it's so important you have a dedicated frontline offer for your business, because then you're going to have a streamlined process and be known for one specific thing. Finally, ultimately, it's about retention. We can do all the work to bring the people in and make sure that they're paying the right amount and be super clear about our offer, but we're going to need to keep these people. This is where we're going to have to work on our client delivery, and we're going to have to take a look at what happens after what happens next. And I can guarantee you guys listening, if you fix these 5 things, you're not going to actually just grow. You're going to be able to keep what you build. And that's the whole purpose of building a successful business. You want to make sure that everything you're building is long-term, that membership is growing month over month, that your client base is increasing, that people are seeing more and more results. That's what's going to make you the go-to professional. That's what's going to be the difference between you always working inside of your business and you having a business that works without you. So I want you to focus on these 5 things, and thank you guys so much for watching another episode of Coach to Coach. I would love to hear in the comments in the YouTube channel here, what is the one area that you are going to work on? Very, very curious to hear, because we can all use, of course, work in these areas, but start working on these 5 areas. Otherwise, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Make sure you hit that notification icon as well too, so you get updates on the new episode. That is all for this episode, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you on the next one. Take care.